All right. Good evening, everybody. This is Jagan here from Awakening Minds. So, Awakening Mind is a non-for-profit learning and development program. So, in Awakening Mind, we do a lot of book clubs, we do public speaking workshops, we do kind of talk shows, skill development workshop, which actually helps people to develop and we also empower people. So, today our topic of talk show is ESBI Quadrant. So, before I talk about the topic, let me help you understand a little bit about the author, about the book as well. So actually, the person, the book, ESBI Quadrant has been taken from a book that he reached that for that, and the author of the book is Robert Kiyosaki, and his co-author is Sharon Lester. So little bit background: Robert Kiyosaki was born somewhere in 1947. He's basically an American businessman and author. Actually, he's the founder of Rich Dad Company. It's actually a private franchisee education company which has been providing personal finance and business education to various people through books and videos. And Robert Kiyosaki himself has been written around close to 26 books. And many of these books actually are registered series of books, a franchises set of books, and they have been translated in multiple languages and sold over billion and millions of copies worldwide. And talking about the book which we are discussing right now is Rich Dad Poor Dad. This book was actually a 1997 book which was written by Robert Kiyosaki and his co-author was Sharon Lester. And this talks about importance of personal financing, financial literacy, financial education, in fact, financial independence, and building wealth. So various investing assets talks about liabilities and real estate investment, starting your own and talks about how to increase the financial IQ to improve your business acumen. So Robert Kiyosaki is basically known for this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. The reason being is has been their New York bestseller list for many years, for that matter. And in fact, there are some sequel of books also has been written like Cash Flow Quadrant. There has been Rich, uh, Rich Dad Guide to Investing, Why You Want to Be Rich, and many books are in the same franchise of books. So there are dozen of books which have been a sequel of books from Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now, talking about this book, what is the interesting part? When I read and what is the thing I like here is about kind of stories. It talks about rich dad, there's a poor dad, and how the rich dad has accumulated wealth over a period of time due to entrepreneurship, due to different way of thinking, not a bookish way of thinking, kind of entrepreneurial way of thinking, savvy investing. However, the poor dad is typically a traditional uh, father. I mean, for example, his own father, in fact, he was like his own father, who are talking about working hard and working through hard throughout your life, but he never achieved financial independence, he never achieved financial security. So there are many things in the book, obviously talking about wealth creation, and anybody who has read this book, they have understood what actually they're missing in life. And to be frank, this book has been one of my top favorite books because not only because it has been their bestseller list and multiple languages and millions of copies being sold, I myself have given a lot of books, a lot of value out of these books, in fact. So before I talk more about it, what is the content and what is this topic for the talk show? Let me help you welcome somebody who also in the same place like me, who has been reading a lot of books, who has been there also in industry for many years. So I would like to welcome Sanjay. Hi Sanjay, good evening.
Good evening, Jagan. How are
Glad-
you?
I'm doing good. How about you, Sanjay?
Thank you. I'm doing good, Jagan.
All right, Sanjay. Sanjay, can you give a background of yourself?
Certainly, Jagan. First of all, I would like to say thank you for inviting me to this talk show. Well, about me, it's been more than 2 decades of experience in this IT world. I started almost 21 years before my career journey. And since then, I've been working in various companies, predominantly in product companies. All throughout my career, I was in the product company and mostly into telecom path, and currently and technical path in a telecom domain. Currently, I'm working as a enterprise architect in a company. So that's about my career. But yes, I'm born and brought up in Orissa, but then I'm a Rajasthani, and I've done my Bachelor of Engineering. That's about my studies. And yes, over a time, what happens this 2 decades is a long journey. So in this path I have learned a lot, and certainly I am also learning every single day. So there is a lot of learnings has happened, and there are a lot of things that we are learning. So it is a platform wherein we would share our learnings, our experiences that might help everyone, and we'd also learn from others, which would also help us to grow.
Definitely, Sanjay, it's glad to meet you. 21 plus years experience, working a very senior role on enterprise architect. I think that's quite a dream destination for many people who work in IT. But you know what? What I like about you is not only that you have been there in industry for so many years. That's one part of it. More than that, what you have been doing so far is you're reading a lot of books, and I know that you're an avid reader, and you know you are adding value to people's life by reading and you know kind of applying that knowledge also. So can you little bit talk about how this book reading came to your life, and was it from day one or over a period of time it evolved, and how exactly that you have been able to add so much of value to yourself and to people as well?
Certainly. Well, it hasn't started from day one for sure, because once you join a company and in your starting time of your career, you are more fascinated towards technical stuffs, and I was investing most of my time in learning new technologies. I was a like C++ hardcore developer, so most of my time was going in learning newer technologies, developing lot of applications and learning newer languages. So most of my time went there, maybe first 5 or 7 years. I really didn't have time to learn anything else other than focusing on my career path. But it happens, right? So when we go on a path which is very enriching and very learning, then you start exploring many other avenues as well. And the same thing has happened to me also. There are a lot of learnings has happened, and because of my career, because of my project, I had to go to different countries. Close to 15, 20 countries I have been to, and that gave me an experience of different culture, different way of thinking, the different way of life. And then slowly I started got into a group who were investing into different stocks, different real estates, and that's where I got interest in reading many books. And that particular group taught me, in today's world there are multiple ways of learning. One way that we have learned in school and colleges, but that is something everyone learns the same. But if you want to grow and if you want to be on top of this rest of the world, rest of the crowd, you have to read anything and everything what is not been taught in the school and colleges. And that's where they were reading a lot many books. And I also started reading, let's say, books like Think and Grow Rich, or Rich Dad Poor Dad, or the Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, or there are multiple books I started reading maybe last 5, 10 years back. And then that's where I started realizing that what happens when we don't know many things, then we are silent all the time. But then once you start reading, and then you will see that there is no end to learning. And then that initiates more curiosity in you to learn and explore more. And so when I started reading, then I saw that there is a lot of things to learn in this world, which we really haven't learned. So sometimes I really feel sad of me that why have I started so late? So the point I want to put across is that whoever would watch this show maybe anytime, I would urge everyone to start as early as possible. Life is very small, time is very limited. Let's not waste this time for anything. Let's try to utilize it more constructively for ourselves, for our own growth, for the society, for the rest of the country to be happy. So I started almost 5, 10 years back, and that's where I've been reading many books. But that book that we as you said, today we'll be discussing about Rich Dad and Poor Dad, which is really one of the best book that I can say. Because before this book, I though I used to get a lot of money as a salary, I was really not able to manage it. Most of the time, my money was lying in in the bank, it as a fixed deposit or in my savings account. But after I read that book, and that was really, I was losing the value over a time. But after I read that book and I got to know the real value, how to manage that whole money, the cash that I used to have, and I started utilizing it in a more productive way that really generated much more money that I could even think of.
That's awesome, Sanjay. I mean, that's quite glad to know that, you know, despite having so much of experience, sometimes we forget the simple things about financial education. In fact, what I like about one thing we told that you got across a group which actually taught you many things about life, about real life education, I can say, not bookish education. They taught you investment, they taught you creating wealth, creating assets. I guess that is what the difference is. The association is something that makes a lot of difference. And many times we miss out on this association because either we do not want to come out of a cocoon, or maybe something, some point of time we don't get an opportunity to connect with like-minded people. I guess that's probably summarize the point. And also, what I like about the discussion that what you told me that though many books are read, but something about Rich Dad Poor Dad, they taught you many things which you probably never learned in your life. Am I correct, Sanjay?
Correct, correct, very true.
Great, guy, great. That's fine. So, okay, great. So, Sanjay will talk about something which is very interesting. In fact, I also know that you are also quite excited to talk about that. That is the ESBI Quadrant. So, this is something very interesting. When I first time I heard about the quadrant long back when I before I read the book, I was thinking quadrant is like first quadrant, second quadrant. I remember got into calculus mindset. We used to have this y equal to mx plus c, then drawing a line whether stay in the second quadrant, first quadrant, or fourth quadrant. Then when this ESBI quadrant came, I was thinking, what is this ESBI quadrant? So, by the way, how about what is your feeling about ESBI quadrant? Maybe you can throw some light on that.
Yes. Well, you said rightly. It's a very powerful theory, or maybe the formula that we see E equal to MC square, that generates a lot of power. So this is
Correct.
also a very powerful formula, I can say, that can really transform your life. Many times what happens because of the lack of knowledge, we don't know what to do, and we just live the way we are living. But after that, when we, let's say, know something that what we were living and what we should live, then that makes a lot of difference. And similarly, that applies to ESBI quadrant. So if I say this particular book, as Robert Kiyosaki says, this quadrant, that, let's say, if you divide into four parts, there is a left top and the left bottom, and there is a right top and right bottom. So this is the first left top is a employee segment, employee quadrant. What he says is the people who are working for money, like you and me, and we all have been working, or we were working in our many decades that I've been working. So basically, I was working for money alone because I had a lot of daily expenses. I had a lot of dependencies on me, and I was only thinking, because from the childhood I have been taught that let's try to be good at studies, try to get good grades, try to excel in your studies, and get a job and start getting money. So that was the thought process when I started reading. I mean, when I joined my college, or maybe my first company, and my mindset was that, okay, let me try to excel in whatever I'm doing so that I can get more salary. But I didn't realize that I have been doing much more work for the company than myself. So what I used to get money is, okay. So that is okay. That we'll talk later. And then about the four quadrant at a high level. So the first two is the employee quadrant. What is the left top part, and then there's self-employee part. That is what the left bottom part. So wherein it is also a kind of employee, but they are self-employed. Let's say you talk of freelancer, you talk of consultant, or you talk of people who are really, they are also kind of employee. They are little better than employee in a sense that they are not doing every 9 to 6 job, and they are not doing all throughout the months and years, but they are working whenever, let's say, maybe many consultant freelancer I've seen, they work for maybe 6 or 8 months a year, and another 4 months they utilize for themselves. So they are more independent. So that is the kind of top, the bottom left side. And then there is a right side. The right side, people who are really not working for money, rather the money is working for them. So the right top is the business category, people who are having their own business. So they don't really work for money, rather money is working for them, and they are generating, they own the system. So there are a lot of people working for them, generating money for them. So that is the right top part. And the right bottom is the investors, the capitalists who have the money, and they are kind of freedom, they are freed from the financially. So they are financially freedom, they have the financial freedom, and they invest that money to make more money. So that is another class of people who are making money out of money, and money is working for them all throughout 24/7. Let's say talk of Warren Buffett, or let's talk of RK Damani. They are the one of the best investors, or the Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. They are the investors who falls into this right bottom quadrant. So at a high level, these are the four quadrant. But as the discussion goes, we will talk detail about each quadrant. So this is all about the four quadrant, Jagan.
Great, Sanjay. That's really awesome. You know what? There is some interesting discussion happening right now. Many of you may not be knowing. Maybe Sanjay, it's good if you can show this quadrant in a. Maybe take some time also. If you have a book directly, or maybe you can just quickly write it, or maybe something. That will be great because people want to see what is this ESBI quadrant.
Certainly,
Possible?
I can do that. I can do that. Let me just give me at
Take
least.
your time. Meanwhile, let me summarize what Sanjay has told. The screen is right now. It's just on me right now. The screen is on me. Okay, guys. So what Sanjay is talking about? There are four different quadrants. One is employee. Second one is self-employed. Third one is business owner, and fourth one is investor. So the difference he's talking about is employee. Many of us who do a job, okay, we basically belong to an employee quadrant. So in employee quadrant, obviously, you're working for a company, getting paid for effort. That's one thing. Self-employed is where you are owning a job. So it's like a doctor, a lawyer, like that. So self-employment is another kind of thing where you're owning a job. Third one is a business owner, where basically you own something in system where you have a leverage and you create the wealth. And fourth one, the investor, where basically own the investments. So basically, he's talking about the passive kind of growth or kind of bigger businesses happens in the B and I quadrant, where the self-employed and talk about the employees are basically the majority of the population, where the business and investor the minority of the population, where the wealth can be different. By the way, Sanjay is back with his. You can just see what Sanjay is showing. ESBI, great. Sanjay, that's great. I like it. I mean, this is a quick snapshot, I guess. It's really awesome. Great.
Okay.
So Sanjay, let's discuss a little more detail about it because people want to know. Obviously, employees. Okay, we know what is E quadrant means, but what I want to talk about, what are the challenges in E quadrant? If you look at this whole four quadrants, right?
Right.
ESBI. So
Right.
E has some advantage as well. Let's talk about some pros and cons kind of thing, which can probably help things. So E has
Certainly.
some advantages, some disadvantages. Okay,
Right.
it doesn't have all disadvantages. It doesn't have all the advantages. Similarly for each of these quadrants. So
Right.
let's talk one by one quadrant and discuss more in detail what they mean actually and what is the next thing. So how about
Cer-
start with the E quadrant?
Certainly. So as you said rightly, this four quadrants necessary that if you are in any of the quadrant, you are safe or you are in risk. Every quadrant has their own advantages and every quadrant has their own disadvantages. So now, as you said, let's start with the first quadrant, that is employed. So when we were employed or when we are employed, so what happens? Our prime mindset is let's start having a monthly salary. So we are stick to the salaried mentality. So pros and cons, the advantages are there every month, no matter what happens to the company, we will get a salary or a monthly salary. But then there are a lot of risk also in this particular quadrant. So risk are such as, now if you see in this current time, there are a lot of technological changes are happening. Let's say in case of current COVID-19, soon there will be a lot of layoffs will happen. There are a lot of new technologies are coming, and we are not always able to learn new things, and we don't know whether the job will be there forever or not. Many times it happens during the global meltdown, financial crisis, or newer technological change happens, or so many times the company sack or company lay out the lot many employees. So in that case, we our income would stop altogether, because this is a quadrant wherein we are completely dependent on the company. As long as we are working, we are getting salary. The day we stop going to office, the same day our money would or income would stop. So this is a big high risk, because we might be working for another 5 years, 10 years, but after that, what we will not be liking, we would not like to go to office and work for that whole 9 to 6 job. So in that case, our income would stop, but we still need money to live our life. We still need money for our daily expenses. We still need money for maybe our all the our happy maybe our what all we are kind of habits that we have, that incurs a lot of expenses as well. We have many luxury things that we would like to buy. We would like to go to travel, or we would like to go to many places. So for everything needs money. But in that case, once we don't go to office, our money, our income would stop. So that is the one of the biggest risk that I can see. And second risk, what I see is if you are working alone at home and in your family, if something happens to you, then what would happen? You are the only person who is generating income for the whole family. If something happens to you, by God forbid, let's say we would not like anyone to go through this phase, but if someone goes through that phase, the whole family's life would be at stake. So this is the second biggest risk that I can see. Whereas if we come down to the left bottom part, that is, as you said, self-employed part. So
Okay,
that self-employed,
we'll discuss it later, Sanjay, because one by one we'll take it up. So what Sanjay
okay,
has told a very valid point, two valid points is talking about employee who is working in a company. See, as long as there's no advantage here, the advantage is that you generally get a fixed pay. Okay, that means your salary will come even if you maybe take a couple of days off or something. So your income is little secure in a way if things are going well. That means economic is fine, there's no problems, the project you are getting, or maybe the company is doing good. So in that case, your salary is fixed. You don't have to worry about it. But what he's talking about is very important. But 2 points he discussed. I don't know how many actually noticed. One point is that there is some situation change. For example, there might be COVID example, right? If something happens, okay, already has happened by the way, COVID, because that businesses are lost. In US, I heard some 25 million jobs are lost because of COVID-19. So why it's happening? Why it is impacting the employees? Because at the end, companies have to pay salary to individuals. So when some situation happens like this, your income is not secured. Anytime your job can go, and if your job goes, again getting a new job is difficult, especially if you are a senior guy. Obviously, if you're a fresher, less experience, you don't have to worry. But if you're a senior guy, getting a chances of losing a job is much higher because you are in a high salary bracket. Okay. Second point he's talking about is even if things are fine, let's say no COVID or nothing, but in some situations, everything depends on you. You are the person who is working for money and your salary coming from your effort, your 8 hours or 9 hours of effort. Tomorrow something happens to a job, your family, how they will survive because it's like simple, you're putting all the eggs in one basket. 100% income is coming from only one source, that is your 8 hours or 9 hours. So tomorrow, if that is cut off, how the family will sustain. Am I correct, Sanjay? Please
correct,
correct
Jagan.
it.
Yes,
Great,
yes,
great.
you are right, Jagan. You are right.
Appreciate. So my idea is to summarize the content, what you said, very valid content. Let's now talk about next quadrant, which is self-employed. I think everybody some point of time wants to get into that. So probably Sanjay will talk more about it. What is the self-employed quadrant and what is the advantage and disadvantage on that? Yes,
Okay.
Sanjay. Over to you.
Yeah, certainly, Jagan. So now, in fact, I have been playing some part of my career in the second quadrant that we are talking, the self-employed. As I said, even though I was a part of a company, now I've become a freelancer. So many times you have again, this particular quadrant also has a lot of advantages and a lot of disadvantages. So the advantages, if I see, I have a complete freedom. I don't really have to go to office every day from 9 to 6. Most of the time, I work from home at my own convenience. I really don't have to log in at sharp 9 o'clock, or I don't have to swipe the card because I know what output I have to get. So I can log in at any time, I can log out at any time, and I can work according to me. Let's say weekends I can work sometimes, and weekdays I don't need to work. So that convenience is there with me because I'm expert in particular domain, and people would reach out to me. So these are the advantages, and I can ask better money that I was not getting in my previous company as well. Because in a company, what happens? There are thousands of employees, so company also would not like to or cannot afford to pay such a high salary. But if you are an expert in particular domain, so then if someone is coming to you, so that means they know the value of you in that particular region, so they would like to pay a little more salary or more money as well for the effort that you will be putting. So that is one or the advantage that I can tell you. Whereas there are other disadvantages also. As I said, I'll not be a part of a company. I'm all by myself. So many times what happens, I would not be getting a job all throughout the year. Like what happens is I have been working maybe for 6 months because I got some assignment, I got some kind of projects. After 6 months that got over, it is not necessary that I'll get another project. So that is where the risk is there. Is that the risk is you would not be getting the projects, getting the work all throughout the year. So it may happen that if you are getting a project maybe very often in a year, then yeah, you can get good salary or good money. You can generate some good amount of money, but it is not sure that you would get projects very often. So that is the risk part. But yes, it is certainly better than the employee quadrant because you are having own freedom. It gives you a more visibility towards life. You have the freedom of you, where it will help you to think more in deeper in life. That might help you to decide something, or can think of, you can do introspect many times, because it will give you some time to do many other analysis of yourself. But the risk part is, yes, you cannot assure that you will get the projects, get the job all throughout the year. So that is the quadrant of the self-employed career.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Thanks, Sanjay. So to summarize what Sanjay has told is, self-employed is where you are the boss. You don't have a boss. For example, if I'm working in a company, I report to somebody. So if you're working like a freelancer, like a consultant, possibly you are the boss and you also the employee. So in this case, what happens is, obviously nobody can give you order. You basically depend on certain projects which you execute, and you put your own deadline. You are self-motivated actually. You are self-driven. You don't need this pep talk. You don't need this kind of motivation for you to finish the work, because you know that you are getting paid for what you are doing. So you work as per your flexibility. You can work. Your income will depend on your effort. More you work, more you earn. But the only challenge here is what Sanjay is talking about is, you may not get work for all 12 months. Sometimes the work might come, sometimes the work might not come. So there's an advantage that you can get little higher pay compared to as employee, because the employee works as a part of a bigger ecosystem where a lot of fixed costs are involved, running costs are involved. For a self-employed, you don't have that much of, you don't have bigger kind of infrastructure, so obviously you get more salary. But the challenge what happens is, there are certain times when you get money because the projects are up and running. There are certain times you do not get money. So there's a challenge. I think that's quite, I can connect your profession to a doctor's profession, maybe not doctor, I can say, maybe a lawyer's profession, to some extent doctor as well, because doctors and lawyers don't have any boss. Obviously, but they work for all 12 months or maybe beyond it, because they get always the work. That's a different story. But what I'm saying is, the way you do not have a boss, many a times the doctor or lawyer doesn't have a boss as well. So they work for themselves, they fend for themselves, they work for money, and they work for themselves. They are the boss, they are the employee, they're everything, they're all in all. And as you understand, here the challenge is the same. What Sanjay told for the second problem, which is for the employee as well. The time you stop working, right? You are the breadwinner. In the time you're 8 hours, 9 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is, if it is not there, your family will be impacted, because you are the source and which is actually creating the value for the family. Correct, Sanjay?
Correct, Jagan. And I would
Correct.
like to add also in this same thing, that you said the doctor, right? So let's say if a doctor is a part of a hospital, it's like he's working, he's like an employed, he's an
Yes.
employee of that hospital. So in that
Correct.
case, he can get an assured salary every month. But let's say if he would like to come out of that hospital, he would not like to be a part of that hospital, and he would like to open his own clinic. So he
Mm-hmm.
becomes is self-employed himself. But what is the surety that people would come to that clinic? If so, if the patient would not come, because many, if you see in our area, there are many clinics, but not all the clinics are successful. Not all the doctors are always busy. So in that case, if he's a self-employed doctor, and if he has opened his maybe clinic or maybe nursing home, there is no surety that people would come there. Maybe they come at some times, but if they are not really been treated well, so they would not come. So in that case, there is no surety that they would generate money. So that is a risk for the self-employed doctor as well.
Great, great. Yeah, but yeah, good point, Sanjay. But a little I differ on that point, because nowadays doctors are little smarter compared to old doctors. So many of them work in hospital, and also they do this kind of their own clinic as well. I see doctors who move from one hospital to other hospital. One hospital maybe they work as an employee, and the other hospital they may be own clinic. So that's how
Yes,
they manage.
yes,
So they work more
correct,
obviously, but the challenge is same. They're completely on the left side of the quadrant. So they are both employee and self-employed. So they have a fixed salary, so they get the benefit of the employee and also the benefit of the self-employed. So something goes up, let's say the job goes, or maybe the clinic doesn't work, so they can have other source of income. So they have actually two sources of income, if I understand. So one
right,
doesn't work, they can always depend on other. But again, the major problem here, as you discuss, is The time you stop working, the income will stop. Tomorrow, let's say I'm a heart surgeon and I face an accident, my hands are gone. Then I cannot do any surgery. My income is zero. Okay.
Agree.
So
Right.
the insurance and all these things cannot take care of me. So there is always depends on my capability, my ability to perform. The time I stop performing, my income stops. Great,
Right.
Sanjay. That's a good point. Now let's talk about the third quadrant, which is a B quadrant, the businessman quadrant. So can
Right.
you throw some light about that as well? Advantages, disadvantages.
Certainly. So, okay, so we till now what all we discussed was the left side of the quadrant, what I shown you. So this is what the left side of the quadrant that we talked of. Okay, okay. So now
Correct.
we're talking of the the right quadrant, that is the business quadrant, the business and investor quadrant. So the right top is the business community or the people who are owning the business. So in that case, what happens? They are predominantly not working for money because they have money. People are working for them to generate money for themselves. So let's say in a company, if let's take a example of a company wherein there are, let's say, maybe 200 employees or 300 employees are there, and they all are being paid by the owner of the company, and they are all working every single day for the company, and they are executing multiple projects, and that project is generating more money. Of course they are getting paid for this particular work they are doing, but the owner of the company may work with the company, may not work. Even if that company owner is not working, but still because these 300 employees are working for that company, the company is generating revenue, and in a way the owner of the company is getting all those revenue or all those profits, all those money that is being generated by the company. So this is what the transformation change happens here. Even if the company owner is not working, let's say if he has taken a leave for maybe month or two or three, still the money would be generated by the company, by those 300 people or maybe 600 hands. It is not just two hand working like we were seeing in the left hand side. The employees, they had only two hand is working for you and your family. But here in the right hand side, right quadrant, there are 600 hands are working for you. So you must be paying them, but then they are generating much more money for the company. What the company is investing on those 600 employees, and the owner of the company, even if he's not working, I mean, if he's working, it's well and good. But let's say if he's taken a leave of 1 month, or he has gone somewhere for maybe on a holiday for a month or two, still the company is functioning. The people are working for him, and the work is getting generated more revenue. So that is the biggest advantage. So as we said, if on the left hand side quadrant, if something happens to the bread earner, so the whole family's life is at stake. But here on the right hand side quadrant, even if something happens to the owner of the business, still that family is not at stake because the business is still be running, and the business would still generate a lot of revenue which can be used by the family of the business owner. So that is one of the biggest advantage. And again, disadvantage wise, there's a risk is involved because the owner, the business, when he's creating a business, it hasn't started from day one. The business might not generate revenue from the day one, but he has to invest money to grow that business, to create that business. He has to employ people. He has to invest initial investment of time and energy and money has to happen. So that is a risk. But once the money and the business has been stabilized, he is earning throughout his life, not just his life. His maybe many generations can take advantage of that business and can generate more money from that business. And as and when the business would grow, it would grow more money, and more revenue would be incurred from that business. Like I talk of 300 employees, so 600 hands. Over a time he might hire another 500 employees, and that becomes maybe multiplied. The growth and income and revenue would be multiplied over time. So that is the certainly the advantage. And as I said, there is a risk also is there that can be considered as a disadvantage, but it is worth taking that risk for a longer term.
Definitely great, Sanjay. Great. I like it. I like the discussion. By the way, just to summarize what Sanjay has told, a businessman, the peak quadrant, actually a businessman, right? So a businessman, what it does is he creates a system. His system is where there are certain people work for certain things, certain people work for the requirements. For example, If I'm owner of the hospital, right? I have some doctors, I have some nurses, I have some, pharmacy stuff within the hospital. So that means my income is not dependent on my effort anymore because I have so many people, let's say hundreds of people who are working for me, and I generate income out of each of this person's effort. That means my income is like simple. 100% income depends from one source versus 1% income from 100 sources. The difference is simple. My income is right now coming from multiple sources. That means I can, let's say, for example, a company, small level company having 100 employees. Each person works for 8 hours. You have 800 hours in a day. And 800 hours, you take a percentage part of it, and that becomes your money. That means you can compound very, very fast. Now, if you grow this 100 to 200 or 500,000, think of it, how the income can grow. I guess, Sanjay, that is why many of the billionaires are created. Am I correct, Sanjay? Because you
Certainly,
cannot,
yes,
because
yes,
your
Jagan.
8 hours is not going to create a compounding effect. If you understand what I'm talking, compounding effect. A
Right,
compounding effect is where my income actually multiplies many fold. It's not.
right,
It's like simple. When we all start our career, many of us start with, let's say, 2 lakhs. Then you go for 30% hike, 3 lakhs or whatever it is. Then another 30% hike, 40% hike. You don't get high, you change your company. So yours is a linear growth. It's an arithmetic progression. 20%, 30%, 20%, 30% like this. But if you're in a geometric progression, you want to multiply the business income, then you have to get into a business quadrant where you will have people working for you and your income will not depend on one person. Great,
right,
Sanjay. But obviously, we discussed about the challenges here. To set up a business takes time. If for any business, I heard, in fact, to build a business takes 5 years time, and you may not make any money by the way. 5 years time without any salary, and
right,
that is a difficult part because if it's something you're starting from scratch and you have to create that impact, you have to create that value for the society. People are recognizing you, and it's not an overnight affair. So it takes time, but it's worth putting that time to create that asset. Am I correct? Anything you want to add on this part?
yes, Jagan. So you said absolutely right, and I mean we can take lot many examples in current time. If you see company like Paytm, it hasn't started from now. Like Paytm was there from last 10, 15 years, but we just got to know more often when the digitize started, and then maybe during the demonetization, and that's where many people started using Paytm, or maybe let's say 2, 3 years before. Let's take Oyo, and let's take Baizu. Let's take many companies are there which, or maybe let's say Flipkart, or many companies who started, or Zomato, they are really doing good, but they haven't started just today. They are struggling, but soon they become like Paytm. If you see first 5, 7 years, they were under loss, but Paytm is doing really good. And Sekhar Sharma, if you see, Vijay Sekhar Sharma, he's one of the billionaire. Oyo's Ritesh Agarwal is now the world's youngest billionaire. So they all become billionaire from their own business, but that didn't happen overnight. That took maybe 3, 4 years, 5 years, but they were consistent. They had a passion for their own interest, and that made them billionaire. And an employee on the left hand side quadrant can never be a billionaire in his whole life. Even if he works for 10 of his life, he will never be a billionaire.
Correct, Sanjay. I agree with your point because you cannot create a compounding effect with just one person working for it. There has to be an army of people who can work, then only the compounding effect can really take off. Great. So let's move on to the next quadrant, which is the I quadrant. And I quadrant is, I guess, everybody is interested in because obviously investment. You can talk about. So let's talk about, Sanjay, about I quadrant. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? And what is this all about?
Certainly. So as we discussed, there is employees, self-employed businessmen, and another category of people who does not work because they have ample amount of money, and they put money and the money works for them. So they are categorized as investor. Let's say whenever a business starts, a startup needs money. So this investor class gives the money, and then as the startup grows, they generate more money. So in current time, if you see, let's say who all have money, rather than money lying on the bank and sitting idle and losing the value, because if you consider the inflation is much higher than the return that we generate from a fixed income or a savings account, or the fixed account or fixed deposit account. So in a way, if you're putting money in bank and in savings account, you're losing money over time, because inflation is, let's say, 5 or 6 or 7%, which is there, and if you're getting 4 or 5% return from there, and that is a taxable one. So if you deduct the tax one, hardly you will get 3 or 4% return from your money, whereas inflation is hardly 5 to 6%. And now currency, looking at the current situation, inflation will be even higher. So over a time, we are losing the money. So rather than put money, let the money, rather than mm, keeping the money ideal, let it be investment can happen in mutual fund, investment can happen in equity, can happen in real estate, can happen in bonds, can happen in many other index funds. There are a lot of opportunities avenue, but again, it is very risky, and I would not, I mean, see, money is not free in this world. That we all have to agree. If you want to make money, you really have to put effort. Effort in terms of physical effort, effort in terms of knowledge. You have to gain enough knowledge. You have to be very knowledgeable in this particular domain, because this is the most, even though this is the most creamy quadrant of all four, it generates more money, but all out of all four, it has more knowledge. The people who are there in this particular quadrant, they are the most knowledgeable people across the all quadrant in terms of money, in terms of cash flow. So they have more knowledge, and we have to have that kind of knowledge to invest. As I said, there are multiple avenues and there are a lot of risk involved. So people who all would like to invest, they have to have thorough knowledge of what is their risk capacity, what kind of investment they want to like, where, which all places they want to invest, what is their time horizon, what is the income or the maybe kind of return they are expecting. And if you see, that is these are the criteria or attribute that someone has to look into. Advantages, yes, money can work for you. So even if you're sleeping, so advantage I can tell you now, let's say when money is working for you, even if you're sleeping at night, money is working for you to generate more money. If, let's say, you are on a holiday, still the money is working for you. Even if you are maybe in a, maybe or in some best of the best part, if you are in, let's say, Greece or London, or maybe in some place, but this money is still working for you. So that is with a great advantage. Money is really multiplying, and it is giving you the multiplier effect of that part. So that is certainly that advantage. Disadvantage, however, a lot are there as well, because if you have not invested in a proper investment avenue, then you might lose all the money. Now, if you see, look at the COVID-19. Because of the COVID-19, the whole Sensex, the our BSE, Bangalore Stock Exchange, and National Stock Exchange has almost 30-40% has been dropped. Few lakhs crore people have already lost many lakhs of crores. So that is also one of the disadvantage, that you have to have a very, it's a very high risk zone wherein you might get money, might generate more money, but the same way you might lose a lot of money as well. But it is always advisable to keep a longer time horizon of maybe 5-10 years or 10 years plus to get some return. And there are a lot of good options of mutual funds. I've seen people become really millionaire, if not billionaire, and there are billionaires also. If you see Warren Buffett, he is the world's second richest person in the world, and his business is investment. He have been investing from, let's say, last for 50 years ago, and he have been, just by investing, he is the second richest world's second richest person after Bill Gates. Maybe now, of course, Amazon became the richest person, then Bill Gates and have become the third richest person, and he's doing investment. Warren Buffett, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala in India, Rakesh Radhakrishna Damani. There are many names who are really sound investors and who have, but I must say that they are very knowledgeable. They are reading all throughout the day and night to gain the knowledge. And the one of the best book by Benjamin Graham, it is the Intelligent Investor. One should read many other books like Think and Grow Rich. There are many other books related to investment. So people must read a lot to be into investment horizon, to make money from money or by investing money, Jagan.
Great. Thanks a lot, Sanjay. That's quite interesting. So as you discuss, here money works for you in the quadrant, which is I, the investor quadrant, money works for you. So Sanjay gave a good example where basically you put money in FDs or maybe kind of mutual funds. I mean, some kind of investment which is more of playing safe kind of thing. So that doesn't give a good return. But if you are a smart investor like Warren Buffett, where money will work for you, you can multiply the money in much bigger way and you can create a bigger impact. In fact, I also understood, I was reading a book where basically it was said that actually 90% of the wealth what Warren Buffett has created came after the age of 50. So Warren Buffett started at the age of 14, 1 4. Until 50, his wealth was not much, but his actual wealth came after 50. That means in the investor quadrant, you need to have a tremendous patience. You have 20, 30 years of patience because to master something takes time. It's not overnight that you will be a smart investor. It has to be something, you have to put effort, keep on learning things, keep on making mistakes. And over a period of time, you will be a smart investor, then you know how to make money out of money. But many of us don't have the patience. Correct, Sanjay? And that is why we
Correct,
face problems. And it's
correct,
also
Jagan.
very important to understand that investment to come with the own risk. There's a disclaimer always comes in news or somewhere, radio. Any mutual fund is subjected to risk. So play any investment do you know that there is some challenges you'll face. For example, in COVID-19, many people have invested money, but obviously the money has they have lost money as well. I think many people, my friends who have invested in stock market, the price has come down actually. They've lost money. Some people lost lakhs, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 5 lakh. So it's all because of something you cannot predict what is going to happen. So it has to be something, you have to have passion for this. Unless you have passion for investment, you can be on a small level investor, which may not give you a good return. So Sanjay, this is a very interesting talk. Anything on a high level you want to talk? I want to hear how exactly you said that book reading, right, or something association, how it can help actually the people, from the left quadrant come to right quadrant. What is the way they should come from left to right?
Certainly, certainly. So as we agreed, or we discussed that there are pros and cons in every quadrant. So we cannot say the left side is always bad and the right side is always good. But if we are wherever we are, in whatever quadrant we are, we have to make use of that quadrant very effectively, very intelligently. And when I say intelligently, we have to have enough knowledge, because without knowledge we cannot make use of those quadrant very effectively. But yes, majorly what happens, the right side quadrant, as I said, even if something happens to us, the money would still be flowing to us in our family, or other people can be. So that is one of the advantage that we all should take advantage of. And for that, there are many various steps are there. In fact, in the book Rich Dad and Poor Dad, also Robert Kiyosaki has suggested few steps to follow if you really want to go from left quadrant to right quadrant. But he also has said he is not saying that radical change has to happen. It is not an overnight thing that okay, you think that okay, maybe someone is thinking that he's on the left side quadrant, and the next day he would like to go to right side quadrant. So this is not possible. This is a long term goal. And and as I said, in my case, what happened, first 10 years I worked, and after that I said let me start, as because of the group and because I started reading these books of that intelligent investor, or maybe um, Think and Grow Rich and Rich Dad and Poor Dad, slowly, and many other books. So slowly I started walking towards it, and it took me almost 10 years. The next 10 years, I started slowly migrating myself from left quadrant to right quadrant. That is first and foremost thing is you have to change your mindset, because if your mindset would not change, believe me, it would not work out. Because what happens, let's say, I can give you a small example. A person who is overweight, so what will happen? He might go to a hospital, he might go to some gym, he might work out for few months, or maybe he would do a diet, and after 3 to 6 months, he might reduce some weight. But after that, what would happen? He might lose some weight, and then he would he would come back to his normal life of start eating everything. He will not go to gym, or he will not diet more often. And again, after maybe year or two, he will come back to the same place where he started from. So that is where the challenge or the problem comes from. So we don't have to do something temporarily. Our mindset has to change. Our habit has to change. And habit is altogether is a very powerful thing. We can we can talk some other day, maybe on a talk show. But then it has to be a part of your day-to-day life, that okay, you have to move from left quadrant to right quadrant. And Robert Kiyosaki says there are 7 steps that he has suggested. And yes, we all can, I mean, we can discuss about that. And from our own experience also, we can say that there are many things that we can do that would certainly take from left quadrant to right quadrant. As per Robert Kiyosaki, what he says is, the first thing is, he said, mind your own business. Meaning, even if you are on the left quadrant, which you are an employee, but you have to realize that you are working for someone else, generating more money for him rather than for you. He might be giving you some, maybe a lakh or two in a month. In that, you might be generating easily 10 to 20 lakhs for him in that whole month. So he give, by giving you 2 lakhs in a month, he basically generated 18 lakhs. If you were, let's say, I'm giving an example of, let's say, if you work for 20 lakhs, generated 20 lakhs for him, so he got a benefit of 18 lakhs by sitting at home completely, not doing even any work. So that is where the Robert Kiyosaki says, mind your own business. You realize that what you're doing and what you want to do. So that is the first thing that you need to realize. The second is, take control of your cash flow, because the cash flow knowledge you have to have. What are all your debts? What are your liabilities? You have to know. You have to have a very clear difference or knowledge of what are the things that comes under debt, what all the resources or the entity that comes under liabilities. We have to have a knowledge, the cash flow. Because what happens is, if we are earning, maybe let's say X amount, and if our expenditure is more than X, so by month end we are still on a debt. So the person has to know, this is my income and my expenditure has to be below my income, and some money he has to save for the investment as well. So the all the calculation, or maybe the statement sheet, he has to make, that what is his income, what is his liabilities, what is his expenditure, and how much he has to invest. So he has to do very thoroughly. So that is the second step that Robert Kiyosaki is suggesting. The third is, know the difference between calculated risk and risky situation thing. So what he meant by that is, you have to have a knowledge of calculated risk. Because as I said from the second step, that if you have some money to invest in, so you cannot just go and invest. Because as I said, mutual fund might generate a money, but if you see 70% of mutual funds are giving you negative return for even a span of 10 years. So you cannot put those your hard-earned money in those 70% of mutual funds. Because if you put the 70 in those mutual funds, after 10 years also you would be losing money, which is really a very bad thing. So you have to read very thoroughly. You have to have a proper knowledge, which are the mutual fund houses, which are the funds that will generate you money, or that will create more money. So that is the third steps that Robert Kiyosaki is suggesting. The fourth is, he's saying, know what kind of investors you are. Let's say, because there are different investors also, he has categorized 5 different kinds of investors. So I can tell you at a high level that whether you are a passive investor, active investor, risky investor, how much of risk appetite you have, what is your time horizon. So that is, you have to categorize yourself, and then based on that you have to put whether to put on equity, whether to put on debt, whether to put on maybe some mix of hybrid fund. So these are all things you have to have a proper knowledge. And the first thing he's saying, the fifth point, he's saying, get a mentor. As I said, there is a big change has happened in me when I was in that group. So the mentorship is really required. And if you have a person who can really help you, and that would certainly help you to, who can guide you how to do or what to do or where to go and fetch the information. Because mentor makes a real difference. It's like a like like our coach that we say, in even if you see the best of the best player, even the let's say Tendulkar or maybe Virat Kohli also had the coaches. Even they still have the coaches who are helping them to make them shine. We all need coaches, mentors in our life, at every stages of crucial decision. But again, he's also saying that not everyone can be a mentor for you. You have to find a mentor who can really be a beneficial to you, who have the prior knowledge, who have proved himself in the domain that you are expecting him to be suggesting you, who must be having a financially sound knowledge, who must be financially free, at least some kind of financial freedom he must be having. Then only he can motivate you, he can mentor you. So this is the fifth point he is saying. The sixth point he is saying is learn from your mistakes, because there are many mistakes we do in our life, and that is absolutely fine, because we all human do mistakes. But there are people, if they are not learning from their mistakes, that is the worst thing that something can happen to your life. So learn from your mistakes and don't repeat it, and then you try to improve yourself. And the last but not the least, what he's saying is believe in yourself, have the power of faith, because we all know what we think, what we do, we become that same person. So every time you start thinking positively, start thinking that really you want to be, believe in yourself, and then all those techniques. But again, I said it's a very high level. These are the 7 steps that he said. And last, I can say read as many books as is possible. In today's world, if you say digitized world, you go to Google, and he's like now treated as a god. You ask him anything and everything, and you will get an answer. You check the best of the best books which can really help to make you knowledgeable, and start reading the book. And believe me that all those small steps for a longer term would help you to take from yourself from left quadrant to the right quadrant. Jagan. Jagan, you are not audible.
Okay, I was somehow muted. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible now.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Sanjay, for this useful, the constructive talk. It was a great discussion. Obviously, to summarize what Sanjay has told, we have summarized a book which is Rich.Poor.Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Not the complete book as such, but we talk about only one quadrant, that is ESBI Quadrant. In ESBI Quadrant, we talk about employee, we talk about self-employed, we talk about businessman, investor. Employee, you discuss they have a job and there is no leverage. So obviously, you work for money. And in self-employed, you basically own a job. So you don't have a boss you report to, but you work for yourself, you fend for yourself. So employee and self-employed are basically 95% of the population, but the asset they create is only 5%. However, there's one more quadrant which is B and I. The B quadrant is where you own a system and you have a business. For example, Infosys, we talk about Paytm, we talk about any business, they have a system. They have already employed people who can work for them. So you have people working for you. Another quadrant we'll discuss about the investor quadrant. In investor quadrant, what happens? You are a smart investor, Warren Buffett, or maybe somebody who's investing money and getting good returns out of it. Some people who are good in investment, mutual funds, stock market, and all. So your money is working for you. So the basic understanding, all of us have is we all know that the businessman investor is where you are little secure. Obviously, there are some challenges, but financial freedom you can achieve only if you belong to either B or I quadrant, because you have people work for you or your money work for you. You are not working for yourself. The time you work for yourself, you are no more free. You are not financially independent. Now, to come from the E quadrant or S quadrant to the B or I quadrant, what we discussed with Sanjay, the basic ingredient what is required is two things. First of all, you need a mentorship program. That means you need to have with kind of associated people who can actually mentor you, who can coach you, who can guide you, who can actually show you the path of growth. Second most important part is you should have belief that you can do it. Without belief, nothing will work in the world. So these two things are very much important. And I can tell you something, nothing happens automatically. Everything takes its own time. And also, some of you watching this video and you want to grow in life, you want to have a growth roadmap, you want to have a growth mindset, we Awakening Mind, we conduct a lot of public speaking workshops, a lot of communication workshops, and which will help everybody to grow to a level where you can impact the world. And some of you can also move from the E and S quadrant to B and I quadrant. So obviously, education plays a very vital role, as you understood from what Sanjay has told. He understood that association actually made a difference from for him to come from the E to the S quadrant. So maybe more association can obviously take him from S to the B or I quadrant. So obviously everybody in the on the game of life, right? So we have to grow ourselves and we need to be part of association. So make sure you join our. We are conducting a lot of sessions. By the way, conducting book reading club, which is a Wednesday and Thursdays. We are conducting public speaking panel discussion or talk shows, which is on Saturdays. and a lot of other sessions are also happening. Make sure you're part of each of the sessions so that you can empower yourself, you can grow yourself. So I guess we are done. Thanks a lot, by the way, Sanjay, for your information. It was really good, very constructive, very detailed, very crisp information, which obviously everyone can get a lot of value out of it. And thanks for joining us, and see you in the next talk show. Thanks a lot, Sanjay.
Thank you, Jagan. Thanks a lot. My
Thanks a lot.
pleasure, Jagan. Thank you. Thanks a lot.